Hello, I'm Renee Rollins, along with Michelle Burden and Lisa Burkhart-Worley. Welcome to Pop Talk, the show where you never know what topics might pop up. Israel's war with Hamas continues to drag on. It began on October the 7th when Hamas invaded the southern border of Israel and brutally killed over 1,000 Israelis and took over 200 people hostage. There are still about 100 hostages left in captivity. Today on Pop Talk, we're going to do something different. Lisa attended the annual Scholars Conference on the Holocaust and the churches, where she interviewed two scholars on the war. This is going to be very interesting. Let's send it to her now. Lisa, we are anxious to hear about what these scholars have to say about what's still happening in Israel.
Thanks so much, Renee. I'm here at the University of Texas at Dallas, where I have the honor of interviewing two great leaders in the fight against anti-Semitism, Dr. David Patterson, the Hillel A. Feinberg Distinguished Chair in Holocaust Studies at UTD, and Dr. Charles Asher Small, the Director of the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy. And I met you both at the ISGAP annual conference, the Anti-Semitism Institute, and none of us could have ever imagined what would happen just 2 months later after that last institute. And many people believe this war, the October 7th war that happened, was about the land. But can you guys give us some understanding and insight about the true nature of what this war is about?
It isn't about the land, it's about the Jews. It's about it's about a covenant of the land, so to say. It's about the holiness of the land entrusted to the Jewish people. The battle over the land is it's not about real estate. It's about testimony, tradition. It's about the mission of the Jews in the land. Hamas regards it as part of the Waqf, so-called, the previously possessed Muslim land. So they take it to be, it's a holy duty to reclaim the land. But in the process of that, they have to undermine, deny, dehumanize the Jews. So it's about fighting the Jews as the manifestation, incarnation of evil in the mind of Hamas. Peace cannot be purchased by giving away land, at least in this case.
Right. Dr. Small?
Yeah, so I would like to push back a little bit. You said nobody could have imagined that this would have happened on October the 7th. Tragically, scholars like David Patterson and others, and the people that I work with at the Institute for the Study of Global Antisemitism and Policy, we've been saying this for over 20 years. We have to understand the ideology of Hamas. It's an integral part of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is a reactionary social movement that I think takes a perversion of Islam, it with European genocidal anti-Semitism and even Nazism. The spiritual leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood argue that the true believer, the true Muslim, is obligated to complete the work of Hitler, to destroy Israel and to destroy America. Israel is the little Satan, America's the big Satan. And for too long, the United States of America and other Western democracies have been engaging radical Islam, the Muslim Brotherhood, and the Iranian revolutionary regime that's out to destroy the Jewish people in Israel as step number one. Step number two, and this is clearly articulated, is to destroy democracy and destroy the United States of America. And I'll just say, 40 years ago, in Switzerland, there were these documents discovered by the Swiss security forces and later by American security forces here in the Holy Land Foundation, where the Muslim Brotherhood lays out their agenda and how to distance Israel from the West and how to use anti-Semitism to fragment and destabilize the United States of America. Fast forward 40 years later, we had the massacre on October the 7th. On October the 9th, the United States of America exploded with anti-Semitism. And this is not a parochial problem for the Jewish community. This is an attack on American democracy and American stability by radical Islam. And they've been funding our universities and funding our cultural institutions through Qatar and other Gulf states. And I think it's time that the United States, our policymakers, our educators, our media of record, begin to really focus on what's at stake, not just for the Jewish community in the United States, and that's serious enough, but for the stability of the United States internally, domestically, and with our interests in the region around the world. This is a very serious issue.
It is very serious, scary issue. Now, I saw a survey recently where 71% of all Palestinians were in favor of Hamas. We're not talking about just Hamas people. We're talking about all Palestinians. So why is that an unhealthy position to take? They were in favor of Hamas and what they did on October 7th.
If you saw videos of the kidnappers taking their hostages back into Gaza, they were greeted with wildly cheering crowds, huge crowds. In fact, the kidnappers had to protect the hostages from the crowd in some of the footage that I saw. So this, when Charles referred to, the big Satan and the little Satan, the word Satan is something they take seriously. They actually believe in Satan. We have to take seriously the depth of their religious belief and their religious commitment and the centrality of it in their thinking. So here it's not about the land, it's about redemption. It's about destroying evil. This is why they cry out, Allahu Akbar, God is great, as they're chopping off a baby's head, raping a woman, burning, butchering, maiming people. This is a holy act pleasing to God. And the Palestinian people are indoctrinated with this from the womb. The Hamas charter says it's the duty to God, a religious duty, to raise her children for jihad, which is terrorism.
Right.
To raise their children. I saw a photo of a kindergarten graduation ceremony. Not long after the lynching in Ramallah, Badim Noritz was one of the victims. The famous image of the man holding up his hands covered with blood. 5-year-old little girl, kindergarten graduations, holding up her hands painted red. So we wonder why they have. I'm surprised it's only 70, 71, 77%. I'm surprised it isn't more. It's astounding when just one steps forward, given what they're surrounded with, is remarkable. And it's not just Gaza, where you have this Jew hatred instilled in children from the time they grow up. It's all through the region.
So that's all they know. Now, there is a lot of pressure on Israel to call a ceasefire, but at the date of this or the time of this taping, Hamas is not meeting Israel's demands to know if the hostages are okay or are they alive? Are some of them alive? They're not answering. Yeah, what are their names? Yeah. So what are your thoughts about a ceasefire ever happening?
Look, it's a good question. I think, as Professor Elie Wiesel, Nobel Prize winner, always said, that this is a cult of death. This is not a culture or a social movement that respects life. It's a cult of death. And as David was saying, they're out to murder and kill Jewish people, but also Westerners, Christians, Christian minorities, Americans. Iran and the Muslim Brotherhood, as we speak, are killing people in Iraq and Syria, Americans, servicemen as well, in the region. Iran is supporting Hamas, Hezbollah, the Yemen radical Islamists, sort of around the world, and they're attacking Western soldiers and Israelis. So to have a ceasefire, look, I think at some level there's humanitarian concerns, and getting food into people is obviously important, and destruction with war is a horrible thing. But I think that what Israel is trying to do is to eliminate Hamas from Gaza, and I think that the West needs to really eliminate political Islam from the region, to at least defeat it militarily. And once you defeat it militarily, to stop the type of education that children are getting. When a 5-year-old puts their hands up with red, blood, to symbolize blood, basically in this, sick Islamist terror thinking or ideology, when there's a shaheed, a sort of martyr that goes and blows himself up and kills innocent civilians, these maniacs think that they're getting directly to God. And if you put their hands in their blood, that somehow you're connecting with God. So this is what this child is learning in school, supported by UNRWA, supported by the United Nations, which is supported by the international community. So, Elie Wiesel always taught that anti-Semitism is not a parochial problem. Anti-Semitism begins with the Jewish people, but it never, ever ends with the Jewish people. We know from history that, yes, 6 million people were systematically exterminated during the Holocaust, but Europe was decimated. The infrastructure, the society, 80 million Europeans were murdered and killed in the war. So we know from history that once this hate is unleashed, it knows no boundaries. And tragically, it's alive and well in the Middle East, but it's now alive and well in the United States of America at our best universities and in the streets of our cities. So it's time, and the time is late, that our leaders, our political leaders, our university leaders, our civic leaders stand up, our Christian brothers and sisters, our religious leaders stand up. We know from history that the destruction this can cause to humanity, and to stop it.
This brings me to my next question. It's just shocking that after seeing all the videos from the war, and we probably didn't see the worst of it, right? That anti-Semitism has actually increased globally. So I think you should talk to that first, if you would, and then we'll go to Dr. Patterson.
Sure. So look, the Nazis to some extent during the Holocaust hid the final solution so they could implement it. These maniacs, these barbarians, in the age of social media and the internet, filmed it in the hope that they would get more shaheeds and more martyrs and more people attracted to this disgusting, inhumane movement. But they were right. There was an explosion of anti-Semitism around the world thanks to their recording of decapitations, of sexual violence, and of just murdering children in front of their parents and parents in front of their children. Disgusting. And this gained popularity in the West. So this was October the 7th. On October the 9th, when we returned to universities and we met our faculty and our students, our colleagues, this is where we began to witness the explosion of anti-Semitism in the United States of America at institutions where young Americans learn to be citizens. This is the education that they're getting. Professors not only justifying what happened on October the 7th. I went to seminars at Columbia University and at NYU where professors and some of the most brilliant doctoral students at some of our best universities in the United States of America were saying that all of Israel is occupied and that occupation must be ended by all means necessary, including murder, and this is from feminist scholars, including the sexual brutalization of Jewish women in Israel. And they argued that the Jews are responsible for the violence because they invited it upon themselves to be in the land, to occupy the land. So they were justifying using philosophy and social science, social theory and cultural studies in the most immaculate intellectual way to justify the murder of Israelis, to justify the murder of rape and pillage of Jewish women. These are professors. These are student groups. This is happening in the greatest democracy in the world. And I'm telling you, it's like a cancer and it's spreading.
So how can we, well, you go ahead and answer that question. Yeah.
Well, the premise among anti-Semites is not that all Jews are evil, but all evil is Jewish. But when they are seeing this savagery, it's a savagery perpetrated against evil, not even against humans. The discourse of anti-Semitism demonizes the Jews. If it's evil, it comes from the Jews. It comes from Israel. With apartheid, colonialism, racism, whatever the going evil of the day might be, it's from Israel. COVID, police brutality, it's from the Israelis. It's from the Israelis. So it has a redemptive drive here. If we can purge the earth of Israel, there will be peace in the Middle East, for starters. everybody has to be called to the cause. And in these institutions, Jew hatred has become a moral requirement. You cannot be regarded as a moral person unless you oppose the existence of the Jewish state and the Jewish people. The word Zionist means Jew, basically. Why do I have students? I have students who are afraid to go to class because the Israelis are trying to defend themselves around the world. So the demonizing of the Jews makes them, they're as ubiquitous as Satan. They're as invisible as Satan. They are everywhere. It's not just Israelis. And once they're demonized, they're dehumanized. And when they're dehumanized, they're de-victimized. They can't be victims. They're not human. These women can't be raped because they're not human.
Right.
No matter what the evidence of your eyes is. So anti-Semitism here is a lot like a false religion. It has the trappings of a religion. And it implicates not just the Jews, but the very meaning of humanity, the holiness of humanity, the responsibility that devolves on us. The two questions that God asks Cain, where is your brother and what have you done? Most of humanity doesn't want to hear that. They don't want to be asked. They will scream their slogans of hatred to stop up their own ears.
Well, you guys know that I had a Jewish father, but I have a Christian mom. But it is my calling, I think, in this life to fight anti-Semitism and this hatred. But for those who are probably watching right now in their living room and, having a cup of coffee and just, maybe the day includes going to the grocery store or whatever, what can the average American do to fight this cancer, as you called it?
Go ahead.
Well, I think there's a lot we can do. And we have to remember that this is not a parochial problem for the Jewish community. This is a problem that is attacking our human decency and our democratic institutions, our democratic values, our basic notions of what it is to be a citizen of the United States of America. So our religious leaders, our professors, our presidents of universities, our elected representatives need to speak out loud and clear that there'll be zero tolerance for this inhumane, anti-democratic, anti-American hate reactionary movement. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us. Our silence empowers the reactionary people. We have to take a stand. And I think Thomas Jefferson said that, in every generation has to safeguard and expand democratic principles. And this is our calling today, to safeguard and expand what it means to live in a democracy.
Yes, and absolutely. Being informed is very important. We see the word Hamas all over the media, but my guess is very few people know who they are. Very few people know who Yahya Sinwar is or Ismail Haniyeh. They don't know these names. So be informed, name the evil you're dealing with. They're not freedom fighters.
Right.
They're murderers. They're butchers. Also, it's not always easy to know where to go to become informed. One excellent place is the ISCAP website, iscap.org.
Right.
Reliable, kosher, thoroughly researched, up-to-date, daily, up-to-date. That's one place to go. So be informed, name the evil, recognize this hate speech when you see it. When, for example, on the college campuses, Students for Justice in Palestine every spring around Passover will do an Israeli apartheid week.
Mm-hmm.
Israel is not an apartheid state. Charles Hill here has been deep in apartheid state. But it's the word is calculated to incite. Try to distinguish speaking words, discourse calculated to incite rather than to inform.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for providing your expertise on this subject. I wish you both the best in your fight against anti-Semitism.
It's an honor to be with you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.
Thank you.
All right, Michelle and Renee, back to you.
Thank you, Lisa. What a great interview. And we join you in this ongoing battle against anti-Semitism. We would love for everyone to reach out to us here at Pearls of Promise Ministries. Our website is pearlsofpromiseministries.com. You can email us at info@pearlsofpromiseministries.com. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Pop Talk Media or at Pearls of Promise. We're on Instagram at @pop_ministries, and you can check out all of our past Pop Talk television shows on our Pearls of Promise Ministries YouTube channel. Now, as a special treat, our own Renee Rollins will close us out this edition of Pop Talk with an original song appropriately dedicated to those Israelis who are still being kept hostage, as well as the victims of the Holocaust. It is called You Provide, Adonai. Renee?
No one compares to you, my King, and your love's my whole perfect peace. Your ways are higher, and my mind can comprehend, but I choose to praise the one who engraved my name in the palm of his hand. Adonai, I hear your voice and it calls me El Shaddai. You provide, Adonai. There are no words to tell you, my King, how much I see your mercy surrounding me. Your ways are higher, and my mind can't comprehend, but I choose to praise the one who delivers me with his mighty right hand. Adonai, I hear your voice and it calls me El Shaddai. You provide, Adonai. Seated above, enthroned in the heavenlies, angels surround and bow at your throne. Seated above, enthroned in the highest praise, the highest praise. Adonai, I hear your voice and it calls me El Shaddai. You provide, oh Adonai. I hear your voice and it calls me El Shaddai. You provide, Shalom.